the penultimate round of the 2021 Volkswagen Racing Cup, incorporating the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK, is just a few minutes away here on the Donington Park National Circuit. What a day this is turning into. 3 races, 5 drivers in contention for the title. And after race 1, all we really know is that it's even closer. There are still 5 of them that can win. And the chances of our reigning champion Lewis Kent retaining that title, despite the fact he arrived here with a 20-odd point lead, are getting less and less with every session that passes by. Andy McEwen up here in the commentary box, Paul O'Neill alongside me, cars making their way around to the grid, Paul, and I don't know about you, but the old heart rate is starting to climb. This is getting pretty tense now, isn't it?
Yeah, you can feel the anxiety of the drivers, can't you? We did a little interview before with the 5 championship contenders, but you could feel a bit of angst creeping in. But now, just going down to that paddock and just going to speak to a few of them, there's a few of them saying things to us that they wouldn't say to the drivers next to them.
Yeah, it has the potential to kick off royally, this race, doesn't it? If you weren't with us earlier on today, why not? Because you missed a fantastic race, which was won in the end after a really sort of dramatic final few laps. It was Alex Morgan and Bruce Winfield that were up there fighting for the race victory. Morgan was sort of slowing towards the end of the race periodically. We couldn't really work out what the problem was. Apparently, fuel pressure issue meant that the car was basically losing performance down the straights. Bruce Winfield got a chance to attack him, so did Jack Constable, and somehow through it all Morgan came out victorious. Winfield finished second and Jack Constable third, but Alex Morgan is one of 4 drivers this weekend who are not registered for the full championship, so doesn't score points. That means that Bruce Winfield, who came into the weekend really the real outsider in the championship battle, scored the maximum 25 points and closes right in the championship chase. The points then, provisionally, see Lewis Kent still leading, but by just 16 points now over Bradley Kent, his brother, who moves up ahead of Dan Kirby into second. Kirby is 3 points further back in third, 19 off the top. And here are the confirmed points, with Max Hart and Bruce Winfield joint 4th now. So Hart and Winfield, Paul, in a way were the 2 winners there. I know Hart had that mistake at Coppers, he lost a few places, but he and Bruce Winfield have catapulted themselves right back into this now. There are 52 points still on offer, 25 cover those 5 drivers.
Yeah, and like you said, with the likes of Bruce Winfield, a massive outsider as he come into this, but then when he stuck it on pole and Lewis was at the back, then we really started to have to take him seriously, and now even more seriously after those points that he scored in that first race today. And that is how it's looking. And like you say, Max Hart as well, after probably thinking that is game over for me. I tell you what, we could have 4 drivers here, all near enough tied on the same points after this, because I am now just thinking anything can happen in this weekend.
And that's how it should be. You know, this is motorsport, this is touring car racing as well, and having it come down to the wire like this, it's not new for the championship. As I made the point earlier on, it always seems to come down to the last weekend. Never before, though, has it been on this much of a knife edge, and all helped by the fact that Lewis Kent is not having a great weekend, but it certainly is generating a very, very tense afternoon of racing. By the way, there were a couple of time penalties that were handed out after the earlier race, which we should just clarify. 5-second time penalties were handed out to car 21, which was Andy Wilmot, car 33, Jack Tepper, and car 70, Will Butler. There was then a further 10-second penalty applied to Will Butler. He ended up with a 15-second penalty in total for track limits infringements. So that is led to some slight amendments to the result, and more to the point, some slight amendments to the grid, which for this second race of the 3 today features a partially reversed order. So the top 6 finishers from the earlier race have been reversed, which puts Dan Kirby on pole position with Max Hart alongside him, and those 2 had a coming together at Redgate in the previous race. Typically they both blame each other, and they're both quite keen, I think, to get one over on the other driver at the start of this one, particularly because they are 2 of the championship contenders. Right behind them, Brad Kent and Jack Constable. Bradley Kent moves up to 2nd place in the championship now, ahead of Jack Constable, not ahead of Jack Constable, ahead of Dan Kirby in the points. He's ahead of Jack on the grid. Bruce Winfield, the man that finished 2nd in the previous race but scored those maximum points, he's 5th on the grid, number 37, with number 5 Alex Morgan for company. And then you get the points leader, Lewis Kent, coming from 7th on the grid with number 9 Hugo Cook alongside. Then it's Andy Wilmot and Danny Crevet, Isaac Smith and Tom Hibbert, with Jack Depper, Will Butler, Mark Smith and Darrell Wilson rounding out the 16-car field. The green flag lap then gets underway. Predictions, Paul. It's almost impossible to predict, I realise, apart from the fact we think it's all going to kick off. But what progress can Kent make, first and foremost, and can either Dan Kirby or Max Hart capitalise on their front row position to take some more points out of Lewis?
My predictions are a front-wheel drive car will win.
That's a bold prediction.
Yeah, and it will be second and third. What progress can the boys make? I think looking around them, they can make good progress, but I honestly don't think I haven't seen anybody yet in any car make massive progression that has caught my attention massively. So there's been a few problems with TCR cars today, isn't there? A few little gremlins creeping in here and there. So yeah, I think that there's good. I honestly think, and I don't like this to happen, but I do think there's going to be a bit more rubbing and there's going to be a bit more grass getting thrown up from people running wide trying to get moves done. So there's going to be a lot going on. But I do think Lewis Kent has got to look ahead and think, I'm going to get backed up here, because I think the front row is not going to be electrically fast, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, but particularly because Dan and Max, having had that collision in the earlier race and both knowing how important points are, they're going to be so preoccupied racing each other, Brad Kent as well, and that is inevitably, I think, going to create a bit of a logjam unless one of them can break free, and Max or Brad, arguably based on their race 1 pace, the two more likely to do that. If they can't, it's going to create a real freight train. Here's the grid then. Kirby and Hart row 1, Bradley Kent and Jack Constable make up the second row ahead of Bruce Winfield and Alex Morgan, the race 1 winner. Then it's Lewis Kent coming from 7th alongside Hugo Cook in the Audi. A Cupra of Andy Wilmot is next. He promised that he was really going to go for it in this one. Watch for him to move forward. Danny Crevet for company, Isaac Smith and Tom Hibbert in the Astra on the 6th row. Then it's Jack Depper and Will Butler, with Mark Smith and Darrell Wilson rounding out the grid. And I think Darrell did make it out there despite an issue in the previous race. Amidst everything else we were trying to find out between the races, including what time the race was going to start, we didn't quite get round to figuring out what the issue was with Wilson's car, but they've got it fixed and he's out there on the grid. So Max Hart then weaving around, trying to get some heat into the tyres. It's got a bit warmer now, hasn't it, Paul, than it was earlier on this afternoon? That helps with the whole building temperature up matter, doesn't it? Yeah, definitely. We were speaking to Bruce Winfield before, and he was quite surprised how much grip he didn't have, and that's why we've seen his car, that Cupra DSG, just having a big slide down the craners. So he'll be looking out for that now. But like you rightly said, there'll be more track temperature and ambient temperature in the air for them to deal now with that rear axle, which is the one that's the difficult one to actually warm up. So they're all on the grid. The board has been shown. The light should be coming on, so there should be a cracker. Belt yourself in. Stand well back, everyone. This could get messy. Lights are on. They're ready to go out, which happens again after quite a long hold. Now away they go. Dan Kirby on the left, Max Hart on the right. Not an electrifying start from either of them. Winfield is away well again, and so is Lewis Kent. Lewis Kent is on the grass of the inside of Bradley Kent, who's had a shocker. Kirby leads into Redgate. Hart second, Constable third. Side by side for fourth between Winfield and Alex Morgan, but Lewis Kent is ahead of his brother Bradley, who had a nightmare start, Paul. Yeah, look at this though, down the crane is Dan Kirby leading them. Dan Kirby braver than Max Hart in the entry, but look at this, he's right into the back of him, having to defend Dan Kirby in the number 4. Bruce Winfield down the inside of Morgan, and it's all happening. Jack Constable up there in third. Side by side for the race lead. Hart was off the old hairpin faster than Dan Kirby. He's got the inside line for McLean's, which is coming up wheel to wheel between the two drivers that collided in the previous race, and Jack Constable's there as well. Max Hart gets the lead. Car off in the background. One of the Kents is wide in the gravel. I think that's Lewis Kent. I think that's the championship leader in the gravel, and he is off the road completely. We'll clarify which one it is in a moment, but that could have enormous championship implications. Hart leads the way. Kirby second. Constable third. Morgan fourth. Bradley Kent is there, so the championship leader is off. Unbelievable start. We said that we'd see more grass. We said that we may see more gravel. It'd be interesting to see why he's been fired across the gravel trap, but look at this. Let's forget about that for the minute, because we've got people trying to score maximum points. Max Hart is back in this championship. Lewis Kent is back on the track, but he is right at the back of the field. There he is in the background, just up alongside Darrell Wilson at the head of the field. Hart leads the way. Kirby is all over him through Redgate Corner. Hart is struggling to get away. That's not necessarily what I expected, and it's backing Kirby up into Jack Constable, who tries to attack for second and can't do it through the Craner curves. Yeah, look at this. Max Hart looks like he's got his minerals all together now. Takes a fantastic apex. He's starting to move away now. Kirby is backing it up into Constable. I think
think these two guys have had contact before. Brands Hatch, I remember. So the two teammates, Kirby and Constable, and now Morgan into the back of this group. So it just looks like Max Hart wants to score massive points and get away. Look at that. Bruce Winfield in the background is having to make sure he defends from Bradley Kent.
Yeah, Winfield and Hart, remember, are tied for fourth in the points. Bradley Kent, though, is up the inside of Winfield there for fifth position. The point I was about to make is that Winfield is losing out here to Hart, and he's now losing out by even more because it looks as though the Hyundai is going to come through into fifth place. No, Winfield super late on the brakes, carries the speed round the outside. He's in the gravel, though. Max Hart was scrappy through the chicane as well, so Dan Kirby has a run on him. Side by side in the background, side by side for the lead. Where to look? Hart defends the inside line, down towards Redgate. Kirby to the outside line. Who's bravest on the brakes? It's Hart that gets into the corner first. There's so nearly contact. Kirby right over the grass on the inside of the first corner. They're side by side. They're three wide. Jack Constable on the inside, and he's going to get the lead. Jack Constable rubbing with Max Hart. There's more contact down the Craner curves. They are still side by side, but Constable has the inside for the old hairpin and gets the lead, Paul.
Oh, how brave was that? That was amazing stuff down. If you are watching down at the old hairpin, that was unbelievable stuff, and you will rub your eyes, Andy, because I've got gravel in mine as well. That was some move from Jack Constable for the lead. Three wide. Amazing.
Amazing stuff. So it is then Constable the new leader, Hart down to second, flashing his lights in frustration. Kirby is still third. I noticed Brad Kent did get ahead of Bruce Winfield, I think, in the background, yes. So fifth place is now the Hyundai of Bradley Kent. His brother Lewis is 13th and is starting to progress back up the order. Constable's getting away, isn't he?
Yeah, Constable's gone. He's really just getting the hammer down, and it was a fantastically brave move. But look at this train behind. Andy Wilmot's on the back of this as well. So look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wilmot sixth in the blue car. Max Hart had a terrible exit from the chicane. Dan Kirby was in the back of him the lap before. There's no love lost. Alex Morgan's going to regain a place, is he? He's going to get pushed out wide. This could be 2 places for Morgan. Morgan across the front of Kirby. Now he's looking to go round the outside of Max Hart. He's going to be brave here. Has to come out of it. This is a nightmare for Kirby.
Yeah, because he's behind Brad Kent, and now Bruce Winfield looks to the inside as well, down to the old hairpin, has to bail out of it. How on earth Max Hart is still second? I've no idea. He's really struggling off some of the quick corners, isn't he? The cars behind keep on getting a big run, and look at the gap that Constable is starting to build up. So Constable for the win looks good, but where will Hart, Kent and Kirby and Winfield end up? Alex Morgan in the middle of all of this as well. He's almost up the inside of Hart towards Coppice, but I don't think he's quite going to get there. This is the corner where it all went wrong for Hart in the previous race. He actually gaps Morgan on this occasion, who now has to switch from attack to defence because he's got Bradley Kent right behind him.
Look at this though. So Bradley Kent is looking in front of him and seeing a 0 points scoring blocking car. So that's pushing him into Dan Kirby, into Bruce Winfield, and he is losing time hand over fist. Morgan is not going forward. Now he's having to defend from Dan Kirby. This is the last thing that Kent needs, because Dan Kirby's car looks so fast in a straight line, and he's trying to go around the outside. Will he get it done? He's going to have to push him on the grass. He's going to have to drive him on the grass. Bradley, you're going to let him through there. That's not what you're going to get. You're not going to get away with that, mate. Side by side. Look at that. Kirby, he's going to keep his foot in the blue and white car. Kent around the outside now as they go down to the old hairpin. Brave stuff, fellas.
10 out of 10 to Bradley Kent for not putting Kirby on the grass there. He kept the position anyway, and they avoided an incident. Daryl Wilson is off, I'm afraid, at Starkey's. Can't tell if he's gone off or pulled off. Either way, he's out of the race for the second race in a row, and Winfield is ahead of Kirby now. Bruce Winfield capitalising on that to pick up fifth position. So for Kirby, it's all starting to unravel. Good news, though, for Hart and Morgan. They're getting away.
Yeah, look at Morgan, though. Morgan and Hart are right at each other's throats. Different lines through Coppice, and the Hyundai just gets the power down a bit earlier, and that Cupra has really got, well, he's got 14 minutes to do something about this, but there's just ebbing and flowing as they go through this whole race.
Keep an eye to Bradley Kent, the third car in shot, because he's now in free air. He might be able to catch the cars ahead. We've got Danny Crevet off in the background. Winfield is wide at the chicane as well. Lewis Kent update, by the way. He's about to come across the line in, let me just get this confirmed, I think that's 10th position as Kirby and Winfield almost get together. So 10th place now then for Lewis Kent. Haven't got time to get the calculator out. Winfield's off in the gravel. Bruce Winfield is off into the gravel out of Redgate corner. He rejoins, but behind Kirby and Wilmot. Didn't see how that started, Paul.
No, neither did I, and I don't want to say that Kirby and Winfield had contact, but I'm not so sure. I couldn't really see, but he did run wide, didn't he?
Yeah, here comes Lewis Kent then, so his next target is Isaac Smith, who doesn't score points but is still physically in his way. This is the problem, isn't it, with these cars coming in that are not scoring championship points, but you've still got to pass them to get after those that you are fighting for championship points with. Oh, Kirby off, Wilmot off. Winfield's going to be back up the inside there as they go towards Coppice Corner. That was at McLean's that those two ran wide through the gravel. What's happening then? We've got the second, third and fourth cars in shot, but behind them, Kirby is still at the front of the queue, but Winfield clears Wilmot.
Yeah, and that was follow my leader. That was one mistake, just too much, and the car behind follows you and understeers with no front axle grip across the exit of McLean's, all across the dust, all across the grass, and that was it, game over. But look at this now, Dan Kirby in the number 4 car has got Bruce Winfield alongside him, and this is going to be the battle royale. He needs to get past him. These two still hot in the championship. He needs to get underneath him, but the only problem is if you do that and he can't get the power down Winfield, it was going to be side by side down the cranes, which is always a bit of a worry.
There is a lot of grass in the grille of Dan Kirby's car. I can't tell whether it's actually blocking the radiator opening, but that run through the grass, if we get a close-up view of the front of the blue and white Cupra, you might be able to see he's picked up an awful lot of the turf from Donington Park scenery in the front end of that car, and if it is covering the radiator, that could spell disaster with 12 minutes still to go.
Yeah, it does look like quite a bit of grass in that radiator. Wilmot followed him off, didn't he?
Yeah.
At this particular corner, and look at that, he's made a mistake again, and he can't capitalise. Hugo Cook coming from nowhere.
And Lewis Kent is ahead of Isaac Smith, so that gives him 9th place on the road now, with Hugo Cook his next rival, and that would be for some championship points, although Cook was having a look at the inside of Andy Wilmot's blue Cupra as they came onto the exhibition straight. Jack Constable, by the way, don't forget about him, leads the way by 2.8 seconds now over Max Hart in second. Hart seems to be stabilising a little bit now, getting away slightly from Morgan and Bradley Kent. There you can see that battle coming towards us. Or having said that, Morgan and Kent were both faster than Hart on that particular lap. Then you've got Kirby 5th, Winfield 6th, Wilmot 7th, with Hugo Cook looking up the inside into Redgate Corner. Out of Redgate Corner goes that second place battle. What Hart wants here really is for Morgan and Bradley Kent to start battling, because whichever way round those two finish, it makes no difference for the points. Up the inside goes Brad. Too late, never mind, he's gone through anyway at the old hairpin, and Bradley Kent now sets his sights on Max Hart, although he runs a bit wide, and Morgan comes back at him.
He's not going to have that place back for long, because Bradley Kent now has got to fend off, and he's done it actually. Fair play, he got the run and just made the circuit a bit shorter, and now you're going to have Max Hart looking in his rear view mirror thinking he was onto a bit of an easy P2. Well, he ain't going to have that. The 101's going to come out of Coppice now, and he's going to look behind out of his Hyundai, and he's going to see that car behind him, Lewis Kent, or Bradley Kent, sorry, the number 44, gaining on him. And I tell you what, he's properly gaining now.
Yes, he is. Through the chicane they come then, out towards the end of the 8th lap of racing. This has just been the most sensational day of racing so far, and it is still not over. We're not even halfway through this penultimate round of the championship. In the background, oh, that's, well, Andy Wilmot with a huge slide. There's been a lot of changes here, actually, because Lewis Kent is coming through in 8th position now. He benefits from all of that, but he's defending from Jack Depper, who doesn't mind getting stuck in, does he? Even if it's the championship leader he's battling with, side by side into Redgate.
Yeah, side by side. He's going to try and get the undercut, and how hard is Lewis? Lewis is going to have to defend from this. Oh, they're side by side. The last thing, Dan Kirby's out.
Dan Kirby slow at Hollywood. That is one of our championship contenders out of the race. Through goes Jack Depper somehow past Lewis Kent. That was really brave stuff.
Wow, super brave. But look at this now. He's going to have to defend. Jack Depper's car is now too slow coming out of Old Hairpin. But now he's got the power down, and that Golf has got enough power to keep him behind. But Lewis is having a look. Oh, I tell you what, Jack Depper, this is the last thing that he'll have wanted, but at the same time, he's battling with one of the fast boys.
Andy Wilmot and Will Butler in the background up on two wheels.
No.
Oh, Depper off into the gravel. That was a little tiny mistake into Coppice. He's going to go right the way through the gravel trap, and that unfortunately takes him out of that battle. It gives Lewis Kent that position now, but so easy to get that corner wrong, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, it just took a bit too much curb on the way in, but look at this Max Hart. This is the last thing that Max Hart needed. He's got Bradley Kent in the 44 with maximum momentum now, coming up in through the gears and down the crane of curves. Pulls for 6th, just before the turn-in and gets the apex at Craners. And this is about 135 miles an hour in a TCR UK car. Unbelievable stuff, but great momentum from Max Hart to get away again.
As things stand, provisionally, I reckon that Bradley Kent would go into the finale 10 points behind his teammate and brother Lewis. If he can get ahead of Max Hart, though, that's extra championship points. It's an extra 2 championship points, and that gap suddenly goes down to single figures. This is a really crucial battle here. Bradley Kent, in his debut season of touring car racing, is right on the tail of Max Hart out of Coppice. Hart was really slow off the right-hander. Kent to the outside line, down towards the chicane. These two put on a brilliant show at Brands Hatch earlier in the season, and they're doing it again, wheel to wheel into the chicane. Kent round the outside line. Hart's never going to let him have it. Kent with 2 wheels in the gravel, and Hart hangs on.
Max Hart has got nothing to lose, so he can do what he likes. But at the same time, Winfield, look at Alex Morgan now, he's under pressure big time. Alex Morgan round the outside. Bradley Kent gets it slowed down, but Morgan will get the inside line. It will be side by side, will it, down the Craners, as you did see Dan Kirby just coming out of the pit lane.
Yes, so whatever the problem was, they fixed it. He's had this misfire, hasn't he? But that was more than a misfire when he slowed a lap or so ago coming down through the Craner curve. So hopefully they've fixed it, but unfortunately, he's gone a lap down. He will still score some points, though, even if he's a lap or so behind the leaders. So very important still that he goes out there and finishes the race. So, 7.25 minutes to go then. Jack Constable with a 4.3 second lead over this man, Max Hart, in second. Bradley Kent has shaken off Alex Morgan again for the time being and is setting his sights back on the Hyundai ahead. And Bradley Kent, I don't think he's done with Max Hart just yet, is he?
No, and the thing that'll be in Bradley Kent's mind, in the back of his mind, is them extra points that he will get if he actually passes Max Hart, because his brother starts at the back of the grid. Lewis starts at the back of the grid for the last race, whereas his brother Bradley is 6th, so a lot going on at the front, mate.
Yeah, if any points that Bradley Kent can take out of his brother Lewis in this race could prove crucial when we get to the finale later on in the afternoon. It's a shame Jack Constable isn't a championship contender, because he's having by far his best weekend of the season so far, isn't he? He had that podium in race 1. He is dominating race number 2. Second place, though, couldn't be a lot closer. Hart has been caught again by Bradley Kent, and Max Hart has a big wiggle through the Craner curves. Both of these drivers on the absolute limit, Paul.
Yeah, and again, the only thing that's saving Max Hart from an attack from Bradley behind is his apex speed at that last corner. You've seen him fly through Old Hairpin. Brilliant stuff. Look how close now. You'll see Bradley better on the brakes on the turn-in for McLean's. Cuts the corner. Try not to do any damage to those cars. He needs to make a decision now, Max Hart. He either tries to stride away or slow it down and back Bradley up into the car behind him, because there's no points to be lost, but it may cause a bit of side-to-side damage. Lights flashing. Bradley Kent needs to be passed, but Morgan now is really having a real attack on him.
Yes, he is, Alex Morgan. It's got to be a hard position for Morgan to be in this, because he's not a title contender, but he still wants to go and fight for a podium. So how do you race against two guys like this if you're Alex Morgan, knowing what's on the line for them?
Yeah, has he got damage on the back of that car? Because that car is squirming around. Yeah. Bradley's car looks like it's took such a big side hit that it may be crabbing down the straight, and that may be slowing him down. Oh, that's a naughty place to touch someone, because not like that, but that is a really difficult place to hit someone. If you go across the front of someone in 5th gear, that is not a good place to go off.
No, it isn't. Thankfully that didn't happen, though. They both managed to save it. I was about to point out some damage to the front of Brad Kent's car, but you're right, the rear bumper is loose, so he's had a whack from somebody at some point, and his pace isn't as strong now, so maybe that has done a bit of damage to the tracking at the rear of the car. Next time we get a straight-on shot like this, we'll be able to see. Yeah, I don't think that's quite in line, is it?
It looks hobbled, that car. It looks like it's crabbing. Maybe the next straight that we come down, I think the tracking is out on that car, because it looks like it's leaning a funny way. If you look at the car, yeah, it just looks a bit strange, and sometimes you can just learn to live with that. But I think it's really hindering him. So you see him come through the chicane, and what happens is cars will turn left better or right better. And look at it, it looks like it's hobbled. It really looks like it's crabbing, that car in that number 44. Yeah, oh, this is it.
Here comes Morgan up the inside. He can see that car, he can sense blood in the water, and he does now go ahead. Now that doesn't take any points off Bradley Kent. Was that a sensible move for Brad? Let Morgan go, set him off after Max Hart, knowing that you're not losing any points in doing so.
Yeah, I think that was the best way to be. That car might be really hard to hang on to, and I think that's why Bradley is not very fast at this corner now. He was really losing out against Max Hart in that other Hyundai. We'd think two cars of the same mark would actually be pretty matched through there, and they're really not. So Max Hart is away. Max Hart has got a fantastic chance of winning this championship.
It hasn't he just, but then so has Bradley Kent. Bruce Winfield's not out of it yet, nor, mathematically, is Dan Kirby. And Lewis Kent, look, in the background, has almost caught up to Hugo Cook. If he can take 6th place away from Hugo, that is 2 extra championship points. So Lewis Kent is maybe the one we need to watch now. Alex Morgan is definitely breaking away from Bradley. You must be right. That car of Bradley Kent's cannot be handling right. His pace now is actually enough to put him in danger of being overtaken by Bruce Winfield, who again is coming on strong in the second half of the race, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I keep looking at it. It just... Oh, who's this? Who's had a...
That's Hugo Cook, and that gives Lewis Kent that 6th place. That's significant.
Yeah, definitely. And the person who'll be most made up about that, exactly that, will be Lewis Kent, because he knows he still needs to pass him to get past the cars in front, but can he do that? That will be difficult.
Well, the next car ahead of him on the track is Dan Kirby, who is laps down. So actually, Lewis is some 7 seconds behind Bruce Winfield. He's not going to gain any more places. If I were Lewis, I would just sit on the rear bumper of Hugo Cook, or even just stay within 5 seconds, and you will regain that time, because Hugo has just been given a 5-second penalty. Bradley Kent in 4th place is not secure here, is he? Bruce Winfield can see a chance to get some points back off him. Bruce, by the way, has the fastest lap as well, which is worth a bonus championship point, and given how tight this is looking like it's going to be, that could be the deciding factor. Up the hill, meanwhile, towards Coppice comes Dan Kirby, laps down, but Lewis Kent is already clear of Hugo Cook, so Lewis Kent didn't need the 5-second penalty in the end for Hugo. He's passed him on the track. That puts Lewis 6th on the road. That will give him the 5th place point, because Morgan in 3rd, as we've said, doesn't get counted for points. So not actually a bad drive this from Lewis Kent. His brother, though, has some real defensive driving to do.
Yeah, he has, but oh, that is a fantastic switchback just behind you guys there. But to tell you what, Max Hart, it was the look at that, he's done him.
Wow, Winfield is through then. Winfield into 4th position. That is music to the ears of Max Hart, who is still somehow fending Morgan off. And by the same token, I think Max should just let Morgan go now. There's no point fighting with Alex Morgan here. Let him go and pick up those 2nd place points regardless. Out of the old hairpin they go. The reason I say that is that if they start fighting, A, it could end in contact, B, it will allow Winfield to catch them as well. But Max Hart isn't doing that. He's still actively defending this 2nd place into McLaren's.
Yeah, he needs to be careful of that. That's how you pick up a puncher, is being on the wrong part of the track. And look how close these other guys are catching up now, because Winfield's on an absolute flyer. He is doing 11.1s, and he's still not losing time out of his tyres. He's looked after them really well. Look at Bruce Winfield. He's dropped Kent behind him. This could... I tell you what, Bruce has come from nowhere again.
We are about to start the final lap of the race, and Bruce Winfield can see a chance to get a couple more points here, because Max Hart in 2nd is going to have to defend again into Redgate Corner. He actually came off the chicane a little bit better that time. The gap officially between Hart 2nd and Morgan 3rd is just 0.4 of a second as we go on to the final lap of the penultimate round of the 2021 season. Alex Morgan on the attack here. He doesn't really care about this championship battle. He just wants to try and get the best results possible for himself and for the team, and he can see Max Hart ahead is maybe a little bit slower at this portion of the race. How well is Max driving though? That car, with all of its success ballast on board, is still quick enough to fight for 2nd place, as in the background there Lewis Kent is about to overtake Dan Kirby, but not for position.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, isn't there? And I'm surprised how hard Max Hart has defended this position, because you put more pressure through these tyres. Maybe he's seen that Bruce Winfield's catching and he's trying to push him backwards into it, but this guy has drove an absolutely stunning race.
Jack Constable has 1 race win to his name so far this year. That came at Alton Park, and this time he's going to win in real dominant style. He capitalised on the battling behind, and in a car that was hastily repaired after a shunt in qualifying, Jack Constable repays the Powermax Racing team with a victory in race number 2 at Donington Park. In the background there is a back marker just in front of Max Hart, but I think Hart will come home in 2nd place. Yes, he does, with Alex Morgan 3rd, Bruce Winfield 4th, and Bradley Kent will come home in 5th. We'll work the points out in a moment or two. It's not going to be a huge disaster this though for Lewis Kent, because Bradley was his nearest championship rival, and Brad will only finish 1 position ahead of him. Lewis, the championship leader, is 6th in the race, but remember has to start last on the grid again for the 3rd race later on. Hugo Cook 7th with a 5-second penalty. Will Butler was 8th. Isaac Smith in the top 10 on his debut in the championship, with Andy Wilmot rounding out that top 10. Paul, what a race.
Wow, that was unbelievable. That, I mean, from the start the green lights going out or the red lights going out, that was just absolutely stunning. Absolutely a pleasure to commentate on. That was grand. I'm going to go and catch the winner and see what they thought about that. Jack Constable, amazing stuff.
Of all the drivers that I kind of want you to interview, Jack probably is the one that has the least to tell us, because he got into the lead early on and then just scarpered up the road. But we will, I'm sure, have a chance to bring you all of the stories from the rest of the paddock when we come back on air later on this afternoon for that third and final race of the weekend. So, points then, and you'll have to forgive me for doing this on the fly, but with second place in that race, Max Hart will score himself 22 championship points. Bruce Winfield, fourth on the road, but gains third in the points because Morgan ahead of him doesn't score. So that's 20 points for Winfield, plus a bonus point for the fastest lap. Then you've got Bradley Kent finishing in fifth. He picks up 18 championship points in the end. And the other championship contender, the championship leader, Lewis Kent, comes home sixth and will score, by my reckoning, 16 points. Dan Kirby, meanwhile, was 14th on the road, but he had 1, 2, 3 cars ahead of him, I think, that weren't scoring. So he will score the 8 championship points for Kirby, which means that Dan Kirby provisionally is out of contention for the title. That puts Lewis Kent, and this is all subject to official confirmation, it puts Lewis Kent on 228 points. That will give him a 14-point lead over Bradley Kent in second place, after Brad lost those places later on. Brad, by my reckoning, then has 5 points in hand over Max Hart on 209, who is 1 ahead of Bruce Winfield on 208, but on 201 points, Dan Kirby is now too far back to win it. None of this, though, matters to our race winner. Jack Constable is down there in the pit lane with Paul O'Neill.
Woo! How amazing was that? Well, it was a bit boring, wasn't it, to be fair? There's your hat. Well done, mate. That was an absolutely spot-on effort. Job was done, wasn't it? Early doors, lights went out, and you thought, right, let's crack on, and let's go and lead the race and bore everyone to death at home.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, the boys had a little kerfuffle down at the first corner there and managed to slip through and pull a bit of a gap. Nice.
Tell me then, I know you were lined up on the grid against someone that you might have had an interesting battle with in the other races. Was it in your mind just to get to the front as soon as you can and just wave them goodbye? There was a lot of battles that could have went wrong where you were.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with being in the mid-pack, isn't it? But, yeah, to get that bit of clear air straight away and stretch our legs is good. I've really wanted to show the pace of the car this weekend, and I feel like we've done that now, so that's one box ticks. Yeah,
definitely. You had a problem in qualifying, got that all together. The race one was okay, but this is just proper stuff, mate.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to show, so yeah, really pleased.
Talk me through your entrance, actually, that speed ramp that you went over. I thought you were going to rip the flat floor off, mate, of this thing.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
And that's all you're going to say on it, mate?
Yeah, that's it. It's Adam's car, so we won't say anything to Adam, shall we?
Adam Weaver doesn't watch this from PMR, so you should be fine, mate.
He's here this weekend?
Yeah, I've seen him. He looks like one of the spectators with tattoos and everything. Looks great. Listen, we'll let you crack on. Just last question. Third race, how can you see it? What do you want from it?
I don't know. Hopefully the same again, but we'll take what we get.
Anyone you want to help out, championship-wise?
No, I'm just racing, mate. Racing's racing, and I'll do my own thing.
That's boring. I wanted him to say something really controversial. Well done, mate. Jack Constable is your winner. Andy McEwen, back to you.
We leave the controversial quotes to you, Paul. Jack Constable keeping his powder dry very much. So Jack Constable with the win. Max Hart second. Crucial result that for the championship. Alex Morgan third. Bruce Winfield fourth. Brad Kent comes home fifth. He will be so frustrated with the way that race panned out, because Brad had a chance to win it or at least finish second or third, and that damage saw him drop down to fifth. Lewis Kent comes home in sixth place. Then it's Will Butler, Hugo Cook, Isaac Smith and Andy Wilmot to round out the top 10. Jack Depper 11th, Danny Crevet 12th, ahead of Mark Smith, with Dan Kirby classified in 14th place, and we don't think that's enough to keep him in championship contention. So it took us 2 races, but we might finally now have wheedled this down to 4 drivers that can still win the title. But I reckon there are still just 20 points between those 4 as we prepare for the final race of the day. That final race for the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy in TCR UK is scheduled to start at 6:15 p.m. Now, I'm going to hazard a guess and say it might be a little later than that. We've had a few delays to the programme here at Donington earlier on in the day, but fingers crossed we will get out not a huge amount later than that. That is in about an hour's time. Do be sure, though, to head over to the Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK social media pages, because if you give them a like and a follow, they'll be giving you all of the updates as to the rest of the day's programme. They'll also notify you of when the races are about to go live, and head over to their website as well for any more news on race results and championship standings. You will not, though, want to miss that final race later on this afternoon. We look forward to you joining us then.